Now, I know this is controversial, and some of you are going to think I'm really stupid, and I get it. Sometimes I think I'm really stupid, but she really wants to, though. Must be living in that tree. Hello friends, welcome back. I am Jason and let's discuss water. I think it's pretty common knowledge that you only got a couple of days, 2-3 days without water before you die of dehydration. Now that's going to depend on the circumstances, obviously. It's going to depend on your activity levels. It's going to depend on the environment that you're in, the heat, the humidity. All of that is going to matter, and it's all going to play a role in how fast you become dehydrated. So replenishing that water that you're losing is going to be super important. Now, there's lots of ways of going about this. There's lots of ways, there's lots of tools, there's lots of techniques, and we're going to discuss a whole bunch of those in this video, and then in another video to follow, we're going to discuss more urban, perhaps at home, ways that you can make your water safe to drink if the grid was to go down. Now, I'm sitting over top of a really nice, fast-flowing creek. The water, as you can see, is crystal clear. I can see straight down to the bottom. And making this water safe to drink is pretty dang easy. And I'm going to show you what I would do in this situation to make my water safe to drink with the kit that I carry on me. So this is my Grail water filter. This is one of the smaller ones. I forget the exact name. Grail. The bigger one's the GeoPress. This one is the, I don't know. It's the press. Anyway, all you do is you fill up this main bottle here with your water up to the fill line, loosen up your cap, and then you press down, and that forces the water, the gasket, the seal on this inner layer here, forces the water through the filter and makes your water nice and safe to drink from not only waterborne pathogens, but it also removes chemicals from the water that could make it hazardous to your health. So right there, in 60 seconds or less, I have 16 ounces clean drinking water from an otherwise polluted source. Now, there's livestock upstream of here that are crapping in this water. There could be a dead cow 2 miles upstream from here in the water, rotting, decaying, just filling the water full of nasty, nasty microbes that could potentially really make me sick. But because of this filter that I've got, I can drink the water and have no issues whatsoever. And this water tastes fantastic. It tastes good. It's cold. It's ice cold, actually. And it's really good. And this is an excellent source if you were to need it. However, I would not want to drink out of this without at a minimum boiling it. And like I said, there's farms upstream from here, so there could be chemical contaminants in this water as well, unfortunately, that we would have to deal with. Now, I have just boiled the water straight out of this creek and drank it several times and not had any issues, but long-term effects, who knows? So filtering it and or boiling it is going to be always an option for me, always required for me to drink out of this. Now, I have drank tiny sips of water out of this creek before and not gotten sick before, but that doesn't mean that I recommend that you do that. I highly suggest that you boil it or filter it in some form or fashion. Now, also in my kit here, I keep a metal canteen cup that up to this fill line here is 20 ounces of water. So I think it holds about 24 ounces of water total. And I highly suggest that you always have a metal canteen cup like this one so you can boil your water. So if something should happen to your filter, that's one of the downsides to a water filter such as the Grail, is that the filter can get clogged up and eventually it will become really difficult to use, really slow to press, or it just won't work at all unless you replace that filter. There's other water filters out there that could be back flushed and washed out, like the Sawyer Minis. I like those a lot for that reason. They'll filter a whole lot more water, but they're just not as convenient and as easy to use as this one right here. And they're not also your water bottle. That's why I like this one primarily. but I do like the Sawyer Minis. But if something should fail, that filter should freeze and bust and break. Not that you'd really know. You wouldn't really know if a filter froze and failed. You would just have to assume that it wasn't good anymore if it froze solid. You would be able to have a backup right here in the form of a metal canteen to boil your water, and that will kill all the bacteria. Like I said before, it won't get rid of any of the chemicals. That stuff's still going to be in there, and that's a problem. If you're dealing with some contaminated water sources. But in this situation, most likely all I'm really concerned about is going to be the waterborne pathogens that are going to make me sick, give me diarrhea, vomiting, all that stuff, and make me further dehydrated if I was in a wilderness type setting or just a grid down type setting. Now, let's say I'm in this same situation next to this really nice creek, but I think it's probably contaminated in some form or fashion. I think there's a dead animal upstream, or I saw the dead deer laying in there. It got hit by a car, ran downhill to the water source, which they often do, and it succumbed to its injuries. It died in the creek, and now it's rotting and disgusting, and it's contaminating my water. Of course, go upstream of that if possible, but you get what I'm saying. Let's say this water is contaminated, and I do not have a metal canteen. I do not have a water filter. I don't have a way to make this water safe to drink. I've got nothing. What I could do is dig myself a seep well. And now that is where a shovel like this is going to come in really, really handy. But in that situation, you may not have a shovel, and you might have to just dig with your paws. You might have to get a stick. You might have to have a digging stick and dig your way down. And what you want to do is go about 3 feet, 2 to 3 feet, I would say, away from the water source. Dig down below the water level, and you're going to dig yourself a little well, a seep well. The sandier the soil, the easier this is going to be. If it's super rocky, it's going to be a pain in the butt. See that? See the water already seeping in there? So I dig myself a well right here, down below the water line, well below the water line. Get rid of all this stuff here. And then I would let that fill with water. Now at first it's going to be nasty. It's going to be muddy, it's going to be dirty, and it's going to look absolutely terrible and not very appetizing for sure. But if you let this set for an hour or so, give or take, sometimes a little more, all that sediment will kind of settle to the bottom, and on top you'll be left with a fairly clean source of water, and it will be filtered through the sand, the sediment that is next to the stream here, assuming that's not contaminated as well. Is it an ideal situation? Absolutely not. Would I want to do this? Absolutely not. It's not going to taste good. The water's not going to be ideal, but it's potentially filtering out some of the nastiness that might be in that main water source right there. If I was next to like a stagnant pond or something like that, and I had absolutely no other option, this would be a way to potentially filter your water to some degree. This video idea was suggested by a commenter, by a subscriber, kayak fisherman. Sorry, I wish I had it in front of me. Something about kayak fishing and something or other. You know who you are. Thank you very much for the idea. You're commenting on all my videos, and I really am grateful for that. So I really do read just about all the comments on all of the videos. So if you have good ideas for videos, send them my way, and I might just feature them and give you a shout out in the video as well. And maybe I'll do a better job of memorizing your title, your handle, your YouTube handle. Anyway, carrying on. Now, where I live, you can oftentimes find low-lying areas. You can find draws, and in those draws, you can find branches, or what I would call a branch, but some people call it a spring head, a small little stream, little tiny creek. That's what you're going to find in pretty much all the little draws in our area. Let's say my hand is the terrain feature, right? Let's say this is a hillside here. This is a ridge right here. This is a hilltop right here. This is a finger coming off of it. It might look more like that, right? This is a finger coming off of that hilltop. This right here between my fingers is going to be a draw, and all the water that hits the ground in this area from rainfall or snow or whatever is going to collect in these draws. And oftentimes you'll find spring heads that pop up right in one of those draws. And I personally, not that I would tell you to do this, suggest you do this, but I have drank gallons and gallons and gallons of water without filtering, without boiling, without purifying in any way, straight out of spring heads, like where the water literally comes up out of the ground. That's the initial source before it heads downhill and into larger streams. I've drank a lot of water from those places and have had no issues whatsoever. But I might be special. I don't know, so I wouldn't suggest that. I'd still recommend that you boil or purify your water in some way. So another tactic, if you do find a small stream like this one right here, is you can walk upstream or downstream, I guess, and you can look for small little tributaries, small little branches that are flowing into this stream here, and you can follow them uphill until you find the source of that water, and it's probably going to be, well, it's going to be a lot cleaner than anything else that is around. Depends on what's uphill of it, obviously. Now, if there's a landfill up above it, then clearly that's probably not the best place to get some water to drink. But in my situation, typically you can get to these hilltops up here and all over the place, and there's nothing up there. I mean, there might be a house, at worst, but typically there's nothing going to be up on top of these hilltops. So if you find this small little source of water, this spring head, it's not going to be contaminated. It's going to be nice and clean. Boil it if you can, filter it if you can, but don't die of dehydration. That's another thing that we need to discuss is people have died of dehydration because they've been too afraid to drink from a water source. Now, yes, you should definitely filter, boil, purify water if you can. But if that's not an option for some reason, maybe you're injured and you're just laying there next to this nasty pond or something like that, and you're on day 2, go working on day 3, and you haven't had a sip of water in that amount of time, yikes. Go ahead and drink that nasty water, because chances are, before you get sick, before the waterborne pathogens take their hold upon your guts and start making you vomiting and diarrhea and just feeling absolutely awful and further dehydrating you, most likely, statistically, you will be out of that survival scenario in the first place. So I would say go ahead and drink that water. So if you're going to die of dehydration, don't die of dehydration laying next to a puddle. Drink the puddle. Now let's say my sources of water are extremely limited. I don't have any options here. I just have a puddle in the ground, literally like this one right here. And this one's actually not too bad, all things considered. It's got fairly clear looking water on top of it, but it's stagnant water like this that is really good at breeding the waterborne pathogens. That's where the mosquitoes all like to lay their eggs as well. And you see the little wigglies in there that are larvae. So this is what can potentially make you sick, is this stagnant water right here. So I would highly suggest that you boil it. But even then, you still want to kind of filter it out just a little bit, because if you try to scoop up this puddle of water, it's going to be pretty dang nasty. And if I can get the large particulates out of the water, it's going to be it's going to taste better for sure. And it's going to harbor a few less microbes. So what I would do, if this was my water source, if I was out here in the prairies, in the wide open expanses, and I had a puddle here, it rained yesterday, and I wasn't able to collect any water, which we'll talk about rain catchment here in just a few minutes. But if I wasn't able to catch any of that rainwater, what would I do with this puddle? Well, this is what I would do if I had a canteen cup. If I didn't have a canteen cup and I was just forced to drink it, I would just drink it. But if I had a canteen cup or a water bottle or a water filter, this is kind of what I would do. And I would do the same thing with my grail. I would pre-filter this water before I pushed it through the grail, so I don't clog up that filter prematurely. But let's say I just plan on boiling this water. This is pretty shallow. I mean, yeah, ideally this would be a little bit deeper. And I could dig this out a little bit deeper and wait for it to all settle down and then come back. But let's say maybe I don't have time for that. I'm dying of dehydration right now, and I'm just going to get what I'm going to get. So what I would do is I would use my canteen cup here with the lid. So you see how that lid has the holes in it? All right, don't do that, Jason. But do you see how that lid has the holes in it? I can use that to strain out a lot of the big particulates that are in this puddle. Or what I could do is take off my bandana that's conveniently around my neck, and I could do the same thing. Let's say I did not have a lid. I could do the same thing with this bandana or in conjunction with that lid. So let's pretend maybe I don't have the lid. That's gone. I could take my bandana and I can drape it over top of my cup like this. Pull it tight like so over the lid or over the top of the cup. And then I could dip this in the water and strain out most of the nasties that are in there. So that's what we're going to do. Let's see what we've got. And there we go. So that's not bad. So you see what we're dealing with there? It's actually not too bad. It's a little bit, stained, tannin kind of colored, but not awful. Would I want to drink this straight as is? Probably not, because, there could be poop and stuff floating around in it from just whatever animals have been wandering around in this field. I would want to boil this at a minimum. Filter it, sure. Boil it, definitely, before I consumed this water. Could you get away with it once? Maybe. Could I get away with drinking this? Maybe. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So boil it, filter it in some form or fashion. Now, another really good option that I like is water purification tablets, like these right here, these portable aqua. These are nice because of just how small and convenient they are, and they work quite well to kill waterborne pathogens. Again, they won't do anything for chemicals that are in your water, but they will kill the nasties that are in there. And I've used these in the jungles of Belize and had no issues whatsoever, other than the water tasting absolutely terrible. It does not taste good. You put this in your water and it will not taste good, and that's kind of what this is for right here, this neutralizing tablet. So basically, you put this tablet in your water, 2 of them, 2 tablets in a quart of water, a liter of water, and then you wait about a half an hour, and then it should be safe to drink. And then right before you drink it, a few minutes before you drink it, you pop in one of these water purification neutralizing tablets, and it gets rid of some of that flavor. Does not taste good in my opinion, but it's better than dying of dysentery. So there's that. Now, I know this is controversial, and some of you are gonna think I'm really stupid, and I get it. Sometimes I think I'm really stupid, but I drink wild water from all over the place, everywhere I go. Not everywhere I go. I'm selective of the sources, obviously. I pick the cleanest source that I can. But everywhere I go in the world, I drink a little bit of wild water without filtering it or boiling it, small amounts. And by doing that, I'm exposing myself to various forms of bacteria and stuff that's in the water in lots of random places. And by doing that, the theory is that I'm going to strengthen my immune system to some degree. Now, again, just a theory, don't suggest that you do that. But I have had good success with this. I have not had any, brain-eating amoebas or anything like that because, again, I am selective of the water that I drink. I don't just drink out of any old nasty puddle on the side of the road in Mexico. I am selective. This armadillo is a brazen son of a gun. Maggie is ticked off at this thing. Maggie does not like this thing. I had to put her inside because she wouldn't stop barking at it. We used to have armadillos. When I was a kid, I lived in Florida for a little while, part of my childhood, like some of elementary school and 1 year in middle school. I lived in South Florida, and I've visited there a bunch. My grandparents have always lived in Florida, and there's armadillo. We always had armadillos that burrow under the house sometimes and undermine the foundation of your home, which was always irritating. But I never remember having armadillos in North Georgia, and I've been up here my entire life as well, and I do not remember in Virginia, Southwest Virginia, I don't remember having armadillos until fairly recently. I started seeing them on the side of the road dead, like roadkill, which is weird. What's going on with that? Migration of the dillas? I'm not sure. If you're in a saltwater environment, man, that's tough. You're surrounded by water, by more water than you could possibly imagine, and you can't drink a drop of it, because as we all know, drinking salt water will kill you. So they do make solar distilleries, solar distillation apparatus survival tools that will allow you to create fresh water out of salt water. And basically they're like big balloon type bags, and you put some salt water in the inside of them, and then the sun will evaporate the water and leave the salt behind, and that water will collect, it will condense on the inside of that big balloon, and then it will trickle down to the bottom into a reservoir where you'll get a little bit of fresh water. Is it going to be a lot of fresh water? No. It would take a really, really big one or several of them to give you a whole bunch of water, enough to really, really sustain you, but it'll get you by. There's a story, I recently did a video on this one, a story of a man that survived 76 days in the Atlantic Ocean using one of those solar stills to get his fresh water from. So he was able to make it work. But something that would work in addition to a solar still or something like that, if you were in a salty environment, or perhaps not, and you just wanted to catch some rainwater, I always carry a poncho. I always recommend to everyone that you carry a poncho. It's a very versatile piece of equipment. It's not very big, it's not very heavy, and the things that you can do with it are just incredible. Everything from shelter to stretchers to rain catchment to just name it. A poncho is just an amazing piece of waterproof barrier for whatever you should need it for. So what I'll show you how to do is just set up a simple rain catchment using a poncho. You could also do the same thing with a trash bag, by the way. Poncho is just convenient. So in my pocket, I always keep a short piece of paracord like this. I shouldn't say always, but I've got it in there most of the time. And in there, and inside of this paracord is 7 individual strands that can be used to make my string go a little bit further. So let's say I needed to rig up this poncho into a rain catchment. I would need to tie up the 4 corners of my poncho in some form or fashion. It doesn't have to be pretty, but you do have to secure it pretty strong, because once it starts to fill up with water, it's going to get heavy. So let's say this is the only piece of string that I had, and it wasn't enough to do all 4 corners of my poncho. And really, all you're going to need is for the inner strands here, and that's going to be plenty. It's plenty strong enough right there. See that? There we go. There's 4. And if I was truly in a survival situation, I'd be very diligent about keeping track of all of my cordage and not wasting any of it. I wouldn't be throwing it away. I wouldn't use all of the paracord when I could just get away with using one of the inner strands. I would make this go as far as I possibly could, because I can make cordage out of the wild. I can make lots of cordage, and it takes time, it takes effort, it takes resources, and it will never be as strong as paracord. Now, I've done knot videos in the past, so if you want to see elaborate details on how to tie all the knots that I use on a regular basis, that would be the best place to go look. A single bunny ear, that way I can easily untie it when I'm finished. And that will just slip through. I always have a little bit of paracord or piece of bank line or something in the corners of my poncho. That way I can do simple things like this and secure it. And I'll just tie it around this tree right here. So we can do this in a few different ways. We can rig it up so that the hood is the lowest point on our rain catchment here, kind of like that right there. And then our hood itself can be the collection basin. Well, it won't hold water forever, probably. It's still, if you have a good poncho, it'll hold water for a significant amount of time. At least it'll hold what it can in that amount of space right there. It's probably a liter-ish, give or take, maybe a little less. Or what you could do is you could close off your hood like this, turn it kind of inside out. That's what I would typically do. Twist it up, gooseneck it over, tie it off like you would if you're using your poncho as a shelter. tie it off like so. That way that doesn't leak. And now the lowest part of our rain catchment system here is probably going to be like right here-ish, but we won't know until the water starts to flow. So let's say it starts to rain, right? There it goes. So what I do is I just determine where the lowest part of my rain catchment system is, and then I just sit my canteen cup right under that spot, right there. And that will allow me to catch that water. Little fine tuning as it's still raining. Rain's pouring down. Like so. Now, I've had comments in the past when we've talked about rain catchment, or when people have seen me catching water off of my tarp or something like that. And they say, what about the bird poop and the trees and stuff and squirrel crap? Listen, if you're talking about survival, we're still peeing over here. If you're talking about survival, you're gonna have to tolerate some things. Listen, nothing's perfect. We don't live in a sterile environment. You do the best you can with what you've got. But in the end, you're taking some risks just being outside in general. So suck it up. And in this arrangement right here, this isn't actually a bad summertime type shelter if you were using it as your rain catchment system as well, which is kind of cool. So I could get underneath here. If I was using this as my shelter as well, I could be protected out of the rain under here and be collecting my rainwater right here next to me. So it's actually not a terrible summertime shelter. Yeah, you're a little bit exposed. You know, if it was windy and the rain was kind of pouring in from one side or the other, that might be an issue. But if it's kind of a straight down rain, which it oftentimes is if you're in a wooded area because the wind is blocked by all the vegetation, this isn't bad. It will keep you fairly dry and you can collect water at the same time. Kind of cool. Friends, thanks for joining in on this discussion of all things H2O. If you have any water collection, purification tips and tricks that I did not mention in this video, which I'm sure there's plenty, make sure you leave that in the comments section. We've started memberships. You will have access to behind the scenes content, live chats with me. We're gonna do unlisted videos that nobody else gets to see. And if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, make sure you check the link in the description of this video and in the comments section, and you can become an On3 member. Guys, I really do appreciate you watching. Thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. And until next time, what's the worst that could happen? Let's just go On3.